What is the best weapon for damage per second in Hypixel Skyblock? When you think of this, you might think of the Bonemerang, which is the meta weapon for the archer class in the game. However, today I'm going to be showing you guys a weapon that's even better than the Bonemerang for a far cheaper price. Let's get started. Hello everybody, and welcome back to a brand new video on Hypixel Skyblock. So as you saw there by the intro, Bonemerangs are no longer the best weapon for DPS in Hypixel Skyblock. And this is because Hypixel is going to patch sword swapping in the very near future. Now, if you guys don't know how sword swapping works, let me demonstrate. So here is my Bonemerang, and it is fully maxed out. And now I'm going to wear this armor set, and let's see how much damage the Bonemerang does just off the bat. As you can see, it's going to do about 500,000 damage, which is decent, not too great, but it's 500k. But now, let's see what happens if we try to sword swap with it, or in this case, a death bow swap. And look at that. It went from 500,000 damage to 2.6 million damage. And that is over 5 times damage increase. And how can we make this even more crazy? Well, we can make this even more crazy by doing something called triple swapping. As you're going to see in this footage, I proceed to do 35 million damage with the Bonemerang. And if I hit it regularly, I would only be doing about 1 million. As you can see, sword swapping added over 35 times the amount of regular damage that the Bonemerang just did, which is insane. However, now they're patching all of that, and now Bonemerangs are going to do basically 30 ridiculous amounts of less damage because they're patching this sword swapping. And because of this, Archer and Bonemerangs in general are no longer the DPS meta in Hypixel Skyblock. Today, I'll be showing you guys the Axe of the Shredded. Alright, so here is my Axe of the Shredded. And let's just do a quick comparison between my Bonemerangs and the Axe of the Shredded. So, this is my Bonemerang, and as you can see, it's completely maxed out. Soul Leader 5, Overload 5, Power 7, and even Vicious 5. And then here's my Axe of the Shredded. It also has full tier 6 enchants and fumings. However, it does lack Smite 7. However, it's only about a 10% difference, so it shouldn't make too big of a damage difference. Alright, so first, right off the bat, we're going to try the Axe of the Shredded on animals and mobs that are not zombies. Alright, so let's try to find one single mob that doesn't get bowed down by these guys. Hopefully we can. Here we go. So here with the Axe of the Shredded, I'm going to be doing 400,000 damage with the Axe of the Shredded. And with the Bonemerang, I'm going to be doing 800,000. So as you can see, just off the hit test, the Axe of the Shredded seems terrible. It's doing such less damage. But this is against a magma cube. And currently, every single mob in dungeons is classified as undead. So it's only fair to compare the Bonemerang and the Axe of the Shredded on some undead mobs. Alright everyone, so now I'm going to head back into the graveyard. And now let's see the damage difference. So, as I have my Ender Dragon pet on, I have all the base stats. And now with the Bonemerang, as you can see, I'm going to be doing about 500,000, which is really close to what I was doing before. And now let's use the Axe of the Shredded. And I'm going to be doing 1.6 million. So as you can see right off the bat, it's 3 times better. However, you might be wondering, Hot Slicer, but this is not a fair test because the Bonemerang can move and the Axe of the Shredded cannot move. It just stays in one place. Well, my answer to this is, in fact, the Axe of the Shredded can move. And it can move pretty far. Alright, so as you can see, both weapons have a throwing function, as you can see like this. However, the Axe of the Shredded has a really big problem. And that is when you throw it, it only does 10% melee damage. That means that right now, if I throw it on a zombie, it's gonna only do 160k. And the Bonemerang is going to be doing 700k. So as you can see clearly, it's so bad compared to the Bonemerang. But that's only because this thing kind of needs to charge up. So let's get this to a decent amount of mana usage. And now let's see the damage. And as you can see, it's going to be doing 2.5 million damage. That's right, 2.5 mil with just the ability. And compared to the Bonemerang, let's just hit it again. As you can see, that's going to be only 700k, and that is with an overload proc. So clearly, the Axe of the Shredded does a lot of damage. But you might be saying, no one uses one Bonemerang, they use 5 Bonemerangs. So I also have more completely maxed Bonemerangs. And now it's time to head into a dungeon and see how these weapons compare. I'm going to be going into a floor 6 dungeon and seeing the killing time on the terracotta. And as a baseline, here's going to be my setup. First, I'm going to be using my 3/4 Necron armor and a golden sedan head, which is all 5-star. And the pet I'm going to be using is a baby Yeti pet, because I don't want to risk dying all the time. Alright, and also, lastly, for the Axe of the Shredded, I'm going to be using the Berserker class, because it does classify as melee damage. And with the Bonemerangs, I'm going to be using the Archer class. So starting off, we're going to be using 5 Bonemerangs with no swapping, because swapping is soon going to be patched. And we're going to see how we can fare against all of these terracotta. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright everyone, so now I'm in the floor 6 dungeon run. And I'm going to be clearing the dungeon as a mage, because these weapons are not really viable in the dungeon, either one. So let's just do it. Alright everyone, so the Watcher is now cleared, and we're going to be putting on this armor set and the baby Yeti pet. And now I'm going to be using only Bonemerangs for this test, because after swapping is fixed, you're not going to really use any other weapon than Bonemerangs and Archer. So now pay close attention to how fast I kill these terracottas, and let's do this. Alright. And there we go, the terracottas are now dead. And now let's see the giant kill time with the E-Drag pet. There we go, so we killed those relatively fast. And now let's see it against golems. So as you can see, we can kill the golems in about 1 Bonemerang cycle, so that's pretty good. Alrighty, so there we go, pretty cool. And now let's see how much we can do against Sedan. And you can see Sedan's health in the top corner right there, so that'll be useful. There we go, and we killed Sedan pretty quickly right there. So, alright, there we go. That is how Archer is with no swapping. So, it is significantly slower than with swapping. Like, I can just one-tap all the giants, I can one-tap Sedan. But clearly, as you can see, even with all of this, it's still decent. It's not as good as before, but it seems not that bad. As you can see, with the Explosive Shy, still did like 4 million damage. But now let's see how it can do compared to the Axe of the Shredded. So now let's enter the floor 7 as a berserker. Alright, and now we're entering the dungeon, and this time we're going to select the berserker class. There we go, perfect. Alright, and there we go. The blood room is done. And now let's go in with the same setup, same pet, same everything. So it's a very fair test. And let's head into this. So the strategy for using the Axe of the Shredded is to charge it up to 160 mana usage, like this. As you can see, now we're at 80, and then now we're at 160, and then as you can see, they're all dying. And we're getting healed up in the process. As you can see, they're all dead, and we're healing a ton as well. And then, right now, we can melee them when they're spawning like this. We can always melee them, and then once this happens, we're going to use the ability. And there we go. As you can see, we killed all of them now. And now, let's use the Ender Dragon pet. So yet again, we're going to charge up the Axe of the Shredded, and you can see how much health they have in the corner. And then here, to regularly just hitting it. Boom. And it's dead. And then against these giants, these golems. And then here is Sedan. And you can watch his health bar in the corner. And as you can see, we also killed him pretty fast. So there you go. As you can see, we dealt with Sedan really quickly there as well. And let's get right down to it. Alright everybody, so as you saw there by these tests, the Axe of the Shredded is very, very comparable to the Bonemerangs. However, the Axe of the Shredded has a lot more going for it than just pure damage output. So let's see this. First and foremost, the Axe of the Shredded gives you some real healing. As you can see, it heals you for 50 health per hit. Now this seems terrible, but if you're killing something like Withermancers, or the Wither Miners, or even Terracotta, this will heal you for over 3,000 health sometimes when killing these monsters. Now, as well, this axe has unlimited range. Look at the Bonemerang range. As you can see, it goes a few blocks, but it kind of comes back. But this thing, well, it keeps on going forever. And it can pierce unlimited enemies. The Bonemerang can only pierce 10 enemies. But this thing can pierce as many enemies as possible. There's no limit on how many enemies it can pierce. And finally, with this weapon, you can use the ability and a melee hit with it at the same time. And this will effectively double the amount of damage you can do. Now, in the test, I did not particularly do that because I wanted to show purely the ability output, but that is something that you definitely cannot do with Bonemerangs. This is a similar mechanic to the Soul Whip, and being able to attack and use ability at the same time, it's an extremely powerful perk that this weapon has. Now, further going on, this weapon is probably better than Bonemerangs in Master Mode as well. And this is because Bonemerangs do double damage when coming back. And this is really, really, really good. The problem is that for Bonemerangs to be as good as they are, you need to have enough area for Bonemerangs to fire all this way and come all the way back without the target moving. With the Axe of the Shredded, you have no such limitation, and you can hit it forward and you won't really lose any damage by hitting like this. So, that is just the comparison in damage. But now let's talk about the price. This cost me about 40 million coins. And a single Bonemerang with Power 7 and Overload 5 will cost me 40 million coins and maybe even more. So, effectively, this 140 million coin weapon is a little worse or equal to 540 million coin weapons going all at once. With the Bonemerangs, the kill time was slightly faster, I will admit, but the variety of different benefits that the Axe of the Shredded gives you, as well as the massively lower price tag, makes me think that this is the new meta weapon for damage after sword swapping has been patched. Now, of course, this weapon does require Zombie Slayer level 8, and I've calculated that it costs about 30 million coins to get that with tier 5 Revenants. So even if you include the cost of Zombie Slayer 8, this whole setup to use this weapon will still only cost you about 70 million coins, which is really cheap compared to Bonemerangs. So if you're looking to do high amounts of damage and don't want to shell out over 200 million coins for a set of 5 Bonemerangs, then I greatly recommend the Axe of the Shredded. This weapon mostly saw a lot of attention because it was unbalanced and had a bug when it first released, but even after it was balanced and the ability is not broken anymore, it is still an insane weapon. So thank you guys everyone for watching. I think this weapon makes Berserker really relevant in the meta after these sword swapping patches. And without further ado, I'll see you guys later. Bye!